Hey, g'day, it's Prezzo. Thanks for stopping by. This is episode 10 of building Thread Express version 3. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the build, there is a playlist. The link is up there now. Please go back and check out episode 1 if you don't know anything about Thread Express. However, if you've been following the build for a while, you'll know that I'm about 80% done with the mechanical components of Thread Express. And today I need to make this bronze nut that fits onto the lead screw of Thread Express. It's a straightforward component. I don't know why I'm so nervous about doing it, but today is the day. And then there are a handful of components that need to slide along this ratio arm, and they set the pivot point for the ratio arm, and that allows you to set the pitch that Thread Express can generate. But today I need to do this bronze nut, so today's the day. I need to do it. Let's go. I bought myself a birthday present just recently because I knew nobody else would. This is a brand new 200mm 3-jaw chuck for this lathe. The original chuck that came with the lathe when I bought it second hand didn't have a set of reverse jaws, and this type of jaw here that was fitted to the chuck was worn. It was bell-mouthed, and it made it really difficult to grip parts accurately, and it was also problematic when you wanted a part off stock. And what I've done with this one is I machined the register on the back plate slightly smaller, and I've tacked this chuck in so it runs very accurately, and surprisingly nothing else needed modifying. The hole centers for bolting this onto the back plate were the same, all the diameters were the same, so that was surprising. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to machine off this excess stock on this end here, get that accurate to the outer diameter, flip it around, do the same thing on the other end, and bring the finished part to length. Then I can bore out for the thread and cut the thread. Then I will mount this back onto the lead screw and machine the outer diameter. Now the reason for that is that when this part is finished it's very thin, and I didn't want to machine the outer diameter first and then grip it in the chuck and run the risk of making it into a sort of a tri-lobed shape. So hopefully doing it this way around is going to give me a more accurate part. We've got to finish here at 45, so 2.2 off that. Doesn't need to be super accurate. Yeah, so we'll take off 2.2. I'm just going to bump the tool up against that and set the DRO. Okay, finished inner bore diameter has to be 28 for a 1¼ by 7 UNC thread. So I'll just go out to close to that and then I'll start measuring more accurately. Right, that's our finished bore of 28, and you can see there's still plenty of wall thickness in that part there, and I can go ahead and cut the thread and then machine the outer diameter, and when it's finished it's quite a lot thinner than what we've got there at the moment. Okay, I'll get set up for thread cutting. Alright, I think I'm set up now. It's about a half-hour job to change over to a 7 TPI thread on this lathe. You have to change the driver gear on the back of the lathe, set up all your compound slide, get everything sort of dialed in, and yeah, let's hope for the best. So I'm going to run a scratch pass. I'll check it with the gauge, and then we just need to be super careful about the fit of the thread. Don't want it too loose. So let's see how we go. Okay, I was just looking at the footage on the camera and realised that it went out of focus. So the gauge is showing that we've got the correct pitch, 7 TPI, and I've done about 30 thou deep so far. I'm going to do a couple more passes. I'll set the camera up to fix focus, and then I'll bring it back when I get really close to the finished depth. What happened there? You idiot. Alright, what went wrong? I don't know. I obviously didn't set this up correctly for the next cut when I was talking to the camera, and that's what happens when you're making videos. You sort of got to divide your attention between what you're doing and what the camera is seeing. I was worried about it going out of focus, and yeah. So what happened was it started taking a way deeper cut than it should have. I panicked, hit the half nut lever without retracting the tool. It's cut a great big ring inside the thread there. So there's a good chance this part is not going to be good enough. I will probably have to do it again. I'm going to keep going, finish it anyway. I'll put it in Thread Express, see how it goes. But yeah, it really makes me cranky when I do that. If I just turned the camera off, it would have been fine. Alright, I'm going to keep going, and I'll bring you back when we're nearly there. Oh God, you idiot. Alright, so that's running in there now. I'm really happy with the fit. It just sort of feeds in there with no hint of any shaking or clearance. Not tight, not binding, but wait till I show you the inside of the nut. It's a horror story. Alright, so I caught the tip of the tool on the way back out on 2 occasions, and it's left a sort of a reverse spiral in the crest of the thread on the smallest diameter, and of course there's that big ring cut into it where I panicked and released the half nut lever without backing off the tool. And yeah, the finish is not the best on the flanks of the thread, so I'm really upset and angry with myself. I'm going to keep going with this one, but I'll make it again. I don't want to put this into a machine that I've spent so long on, knowing that it's got defects in it. And at the end of the day, it probably doesn't matter. You know, once it's in there, nobody would ever know. And I could have just gone ahead and finished it, not shown you inside there. But yeah, let's be completely honest with how things turn out here. Now, I actually found out what the problem was. I found out why it all went bad, and I'll show you. So this is the thread chasing dial on the Colchester, and what I was doing is I was dropping the half nut lever in on this number 1 position each time. Now with a 7 TPI thread, you've got to drop it in at either 1 or 4 or 3 or 2. You can't do it at every index mark that's there. It's got to be every second one. And when I first started cutting the thread, I dropped the half nut lever in with the number 1 just underneath this round-headed rivet here, or whatever that mark is. And I didn't realise that you could drop it in just toward the top of that mark as well. So when it all went bad, I obviously dropped the half nut lever in just slightly before that mark. So let me see if I can show you. We'll just wait for that to come around. So I would drop it in there. Let's see if we can get it to come in again, but we'll go on the other side of that mark. So you see there, and what happened was the tool tip was then advanced forward in the Z direction, so it's cutting deeper into the front flank of the thread. And it was just me, dividing my attention between the camera and what was going on with the lathe and so on. And yeah, it all went bad. So there you go. So there's also a little bit of wear and tear in this as well, which doesn't help. But that's what went wrong. The bronze nut here is about 3 millimeters oversized on diameter. And what I've done is I've run it onto the lead screw Thread Express. I've got it in the 3-jaw chuck at the left-hand end, supported it on a center at the right-hand end. And I've also run the lap on the thread as well. I can run that back against the end of the bronze nut and lock the lap in position. Now that will stop anything moving while I machine this diameter down to size. And importantly, we're not going to put any crushing forces on that bronze nut when we machine it. And I'm aiming to get a sort of a tight sliding fit on the inside of the nut carrier. And when we got this to size, I'm going to put a small grub screw hole in the flat on the side of the nut carrier, and it will engage in a dimple in the side of the nut here. And we can use a small amount of thread locking compound as well to make sure that nothing moves. So I'll go ahead and machine this now. I'll see if I can do that without screwing it up. I'm still as angry as anything about messing up that thread on the inside there. I'm just going to stop a bit short, and I'll put a chamfer on that end later. So I'll measure this now, find out what we got, put that in the DRO. I think I've got to finish at 35.96. Okay, so we're at 38.71. Alright, that little section on the end there should be to size, so I'm just going to try before I do the full length. Okay, that would be a fairly tight press fit. I don't want it that tight, so I'm just going to take about another 2 or 3/100ths of a millimeter off that. Alright, I'm not going to mess with it, I'm going to leave it there. Yeah, that's good. So I'm just going to chamfer both edges. Yeah, that's fine. Alrighty, I'll get that off there, do the other end, and then it's just a matter of fitting that into the nut carrier. The next group of components I have to make for Thread Express is this pivot clamp assembly. Now this is the third iteration that I've made of this. The original one was completely wrong. I made it as one single part. Second version was a bit closer to what was required, and this third one here is now correct, and that's what I'm going to go ahead and make. Now this will slide along the ratio arm, and it can be locked in position, and it can be locked against a scale that will be down both sides of this long slot here. Now one side is for metric pitches, the other side is for imperial pitches, and on this little cap here there's an index mark. Probably can't see that, but I'll show you close up in a minute. And the material that I need to make this bottom section from is this piece of bronze here. Now on the original version that Cliff Hall made, this was all one part. Let me take this apart and I'll show you what I mean. So that's what it's meant to look like, all made from bronze, and it was to come out of that piece of stock there. but it means that you've got to machine off a lot of material, and I don't know, I'm a bit stingy. I think I could probably use that big chunk of bronze for something else. So what I'm going to try to do is to insert a 10mm diameter pin into this bottom section here. Now I'll either silver solder that in, or I'll put a grub screw to clamp it in place, but I think that that's going to be more economical than just machining this great big chunk of bronze down to something that size. Now that's the first part I'm going to make, and all of these other parts are made of steel. So there's a sort of a clamping arrangement like that, and there's an M14 by 1.25mm pitch thread which holds all of that together. There'll be a washer on there, and I've already made a nut off camera, and this was just machined from an old 1/2" BSW nut, and you can bore that out and machine the M14 thread inside. That's fine. And you can see that little index mark there. That will have to be cut in with some sort of engraving tool, and you can see how that clamps, and that'll clamp on this slot here against the scale. Once again, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. I'll film a bit of it. I won't do any commentary, I'll just show you the steps involved. So I want to get these parts done, and then that pretty much finishes up all of the big mechanical components for Trade Express, and the rest of the parts then are things like making these scales and calibrating those. And I've got a cover that I've already made for the headstock, and then there are some dirt shields that go over the bearings that have to be completed as well. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do this, and yeah, you can watch along. So I was just using the adjustable parallel to get a measurement on the inside of that pocket there. It has to finish at 24.91. So my ratio arm is a little bit undersized from nominal. So I'm just going to take off a few more cuts, and then we'll try the ratio arm in there. So you need to have that a fairly close sliding fit with no wobble and no shake. Alright, something went right for a change. Alright, what I need to do now is drill and tap for a grub screw to hold that 10mm pin in. Yeah, I know, it moved, and I meant to put a piece of copper on this moving jaw, but totally forgot. And with that parallel in there now, it's not going to go anywhere. Okay, I'll get that cut off and face the other side. I'll do that off camera, but that saves us all of that bronze now. I took that part out of the vise after I put the threaded hole in there and felt really good about what I'd done, and then I realised I'd totally forgotten it needs to have a flat on both sides. So there you go, I've set it up again, I've dialed it in, got it all ready to go, but there you go. Check the drawing, Mark, idiot. Okay, I'll get this parted off now, clean it up, and I'll do that off camera, but then we can do the assembly. Okay, today is Friday the 7th of March and there is a tropical cyclone called Alfred, and it's about 100 kilometres south of where we live and just off the coast. It's due to cross the coast tomorrow, probably early morning. It's a category 2 at this stage, so we can get sustained gusts up to like 100 kilometres an hour and probably higher gusts up to 130. Now, the biggest risk here is falling trees and branches, so we've gone right around the property, we've cleaned up as much as we can, we've unblocked all of the drains, cleaned the gutters, so now it's just a matter of waiting to see what happens. So by the time you see this video, it will have already been and gone, so I might try and give you an update in the next video. Now, what I've done on Thread Express is I've gone ahead and made the back headstock cover. This will fit in place there, secured with 4 screws. And all that does, it seals off the back of the headstock and stops any chips and dirt and rubbish getting in there. So that's still to be fitted. I need to drill and tap the holes for assembling that. Now, I also went ahead and made the new nut. Now, this is the old one that I made that was so embarrassing. And the new one is actually in there now. And of course, it went perfectly, so I didn't try and video that. So I'm very happy with the fit of that one there, and it's fine. So that one goes on the shelf of shame. Now, I have also been playing around with the pitch scales. Now, these are just printed out on paper at this stage, and there's one for metric and one for imperial pitches, and I need to check to make sure that these are actually correct. Now, there is a formula, and I made up a spreadsheet which allows you to generate the spacing between those pitch marks there. So if you want to do custom ones, you can. Now, in order to check that the pitch spacings there are correct, I need to fit this linear scale. Now, I've been playing around with this, so I've designed 2 different types of brackets for assembling this onto the side of the headstock over here. So in practice, it will go over on this side here. And the original bracket that I designed was this one here, which is a lot flimsier, and it didn't use the OEM brackets that come with the scale. And I had this clever idea that I was going to drill a hole in the end of the rail of the linear scale here. And in practice, it turned out to be a lot more complicated than I imagined. So I'll actually show this type of bracket on the drawings because you don't need to modify the scale at all to use this one here. Now, I've also fitted up the parts that I made in today's video, and I'll disassemble this now and show you how that works. And then I think that's enough for today. So let me get this apart and I'll show you up close how it all looks. Right on cue, the rain has started, so I'm just going to talk over it. So I've removed the 3 M6 socket head cap screws that hold this down, and that just lifts off like that. So this is the part that I made earlier in the video from bronze. Now, I sent a picture of this to Cliff Hall in New Zealand, and he reminded me that there's a lot of weight that hangs off this particular part, and if you're doing a fabricated assembly like I've done here, you need to ensure that this is a really good fit in the bronze base here. Now you can see I've got a single socket head grub screw to hold all that together, and there is a flat on that piece of ground 10mm bar stock there, and it is a really good solid fit, and I will Loctite that when it's finished. But his recommendation is to make it from one part, so it's a monolithic part, and yeah, sometimes you just got to suck it up and waste the bronze. But anyway, that fits onto the ratio arm like that. At the moment it is quite a firm fit, but I can adjust that. Maybe it doesn't matter, I'm not sure, but you don't want any slop or any shaking in that at all. Now here are the steel parts that we made, and you might be able to see there that that's free to slide along that slot there, and then when you lock the nut down, it clamps that in place. So this becomes a fixed pivot point. So in normal operation of Thread Express, this is locked and solid to this plate here, and then the rest of this mechanism here slides up through that bore, and it is free to rotate as the ratio arm moves. So all of that's working. I've actually had this sitting on the bench here, and I'm able to rotate the lead screw. It's all working. I just haven't fitted the hand wheel yet. So at this point I'm going to go ahead and make a few more parts in the next video, and then we should be able to get on to some of the stuff like making the scales and fitting those and so on. So for now I'm just going to leave that sort of assembled. But you get the idea. Alright, I'm going to wind up now before it really starts to rain hard, and I'll see you in the next video. I've got a little bit of wildlife stuff to show you today, so sit back and enjoy that. And I'm guessing now that we're about like 90% finished with Thread Express, and I'm really looking forward to actually getting this mounted on the mill and trying it out for real. And yeah, hang around for that. That's going to be sensational. Okay, Presso signing out for now, and I'll catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Cutting up this wattle tree, first casualty of tropical cyclone Alfred, at our place anyway. And crawling out the base of this wattle tree are these hairy caterpillars, and they formed some sort of weird nest at the base of the tree. And you don't want to touch these things. Apparently the hairs are highly irritating to the skin. Just for comparison, that's how big they are.